Hello, my name is Saleh. In this video, I'd like to explain how to create a radar chart using subplots in Plotly. I'll show you two cases, 3 subplots in a row and 15 subplots with 5 rows and 3 columns. In my previous video, I showed how to create a radar chart with 1 trace or 3 traces attached to the radar chart, but some people prefer to see these traces separately in 3 separate radar charts. That's the point that we need to use subplots, and then I'm going to use Plotly for this purpose. So let's take a look at our data file. We have 5 continents, and I have made up this data file just for illustration purposes. And then we are going to study the impact of 3 items, cars, trucks, rain, on environmental parameters, parameter 1, 2, 3 to 9, something like fresh water, soil, air, something like that. And then as you can see, I have copied and pasted the parameter 1 at the end to close the line. So if you want to close the line of the radar chart in Plotly, you should put the first line at the end so that it closes the line. I have written the code over here, so we will go through the code line by line and then we discuss everything. So we have a list of continents and then we specify A, and then using this line we read the desired sheet, because A is specified, so it reads any element in the continent, and then it reads any sheet number that you like. And then so from a data file, which is an Excel file, and then we save it into a data frame which we call df. Here we have 3 items, cars, trucks, trains, and then we use make underline subplots to create a figure with 1 row and 3 columns. And then specs here is in fact the most important part. Specs is in fact a list which contains lists for as many number of rows in the figure. Here we have 1 row, then specs contains only 1 list. So if you had 2 rows, as you can see here, if you had 2 rows, specs would contain 2 lists over here, right? Now, as you can see, the list contains 3 dictionaries to specify the type of chart in each column. So imagine if you had 2 rows and 4 columns, then specs would contain 2 lists, and then each list would contain 4 dictionaries to specify the type. Then we have items for as titles for subplots, and then we call them annotations. In fact, it is being called annotations, and then we will be working on this to update it shortly in a minute. And then this is horizontal spacing between radar charts next to each other. Then we go ahead and then we add a trace to our figure using go.Scatterpolar. The first argument is values. As you can see, df.iloc colon 1 is in fact the second column over here versus df.iloc colon 0 versus the first column. So the first argument is values, the second argument is the variables, which is our parameter 1, parameter 2. So another trace 2, which goes to the second subplot. The variable is the third column, that's why I put 2 here, and then values is the third column, and variables is the first column, which is parameter 1, parameter 2. The same is true for the third trace that goes to the third subplot. And then we specify the line, the color for the line, and then in the description below there is a link to my GitHub that you can find color codes in Plotly. And then, as I said, the first trace should go to the first subplot that is in row 1, column 1, and then the second trace goes to the second subplot that is located in row 1, column 2, and then the third trace goes to the third subplot that is in row 1 and column 3. So let's go ahead and then style our figure. So if you like the traces to be filled with the same column, you use this command. And then, as I said before, for each subplot we have a title or annotation, so we don't need legend. So that's why I put show legend to be false. And then when we update annotations, you know, you have font size, font weight, and then the value of y. So if you like these annotations to be higher or lower, you change the value of y. That's it. And then we go for title. You know, we know that title belongs to the whole figure. That's why we have to update the layout. And then we have a text for title, which is contains a, like any element in the list. And then you have font size, font weight, and the value of x and y. X is 0.5 because we would like the title to be right in the middle. And the next thing is we have, you know, an important thing, a radial axis and angular axis and radial axis. You know, all the features along the circumference of the radar chart is called, these features are called angular axis features, and then all the numbers along the radius are called radial axis features. And then these are called ticks, you know, angular axis ticks and then radial axis ticks. So let's go ahead. So, you know, in order, so let me deactivate this, let me activate this one. Okay, so when we should update polars to have access to angular axis. So if you want to have a polygon radar chart, so you use linear. If you want it to be a circle, just don't put anything over here. And then for angular axis tick, you have font size and then you have font weight. So this is the way that you can change the font size and font weight for angular axis ticks. Okay, so next thing is radial axis, and then for radial axis, you know, we should have a range from 0 to 1, because, you know, if I don't specify 1, it leaves an additional margin at the, like, around the circumference that I don't like to have. That's why I specify right at 1, so that, you know, it doesn't go beyond 1. And then the spacing between radial axis ticks is called d-tick. So that is 0.2, that we set 0.2, because I would like to see 0.2, 0.4, and 0.6, something like that. And then we have angle. So if I put 0, if I put everything 0, it will publish all numbers along this axis, right? So we have 9 sectors, and then so each of them is 40 degrees. So if I want to see everything along this radius, so I put 80 over here. So let's see what happens. Let me run the code and see what happens. So you see all numbers are along this radius, but, you know, we would like to see all these numbers to be in a horizontal fashion. So that's why I put tick angle to be the same. So 80, now we have all numbers along this radius, but in a horizontal fashion. Okay, but sometimes, you know, instead of having these numbers, you would like to have some words. So this is the point that you use. So let me deactivate this and then activate this one. Okay, again, so it is a range from 0 to 1, and then we have tickvals over here, so 0.2, 0.4 up to 1, and then ticktext. So instead of 0.2, it prints this word. Okay, and then you have again angle and tick angle over here, and then tick font size, which is the font size for these words. Okay, and then the last one is, if you want the radar chart to be empty, like no color or anything, so template is none. So if you will find this code in my GitHub, and then the next thing is that this is the code for 15 subplots. So we have all items over here. So if you look at this, you know, we have all titles like this. So we have to have a good like a tuple for items, because this is gonna act as our subplot title, if you remember. The next important thing is specs. So if you remember, we have 3 columns. So 3 times this list, which contains 1 dictionary, which will give you a list with 3 dictionaries in which type is specified to be polar. And then when you multiply 5 by this list, which contains 1 list, it gives you a large list that contains 5 lists. So please practice this a little bit more so that you really get the hang of it. And the next thing is, we have 5 rows. So I put a for loop here to read the sheets, like each sheet, and then create 3 radar charts, like 3 subplots in each row. That's why I must have a for loop. And then the rest is the same, and then you can go through this. If you have a question, you can leave a comment and then ask me your questions. I hope you have enjoyed, and take care and have a lovely time. Bye.